Yeah. Yeah, we can start.
Yes, just one second. Okay. Cool. So, hi everyone, welcome to the Finance Story Career Insight series. So, one of the many reasons for not hiring CFOs for your small business or startup is affordability, right? So, however, a transformative solution has been emerged in the last 15 years, I could say, which is known as the outsourced CFO model. So, today we have with us Sanjay Gaggar, who is a CA and has been in this outsourced CFO space since 2010, almost 13 years. Sanjay is here to shed light on how this market has evolved, the competitive landscape, the hurdles faced by this innovative business model, and the remarkable growth it has witnessed in the last decade or so. So, Sanjay, thank you so much for joining in. I mean, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, first of all, I must congratulate the finance story, the kind of research, the kind of, the entire content, and obviously the entrepreneurship model, which one can drive out of the finance professional is amazing. And I think we are one of those back office guys, and when you see the startups around you, I think the finance story model is something which we can always, keep getting so much of stuff around what we can do. So
Thank
that's
you,
a
sir.
great.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Okay, my first question for you is like, could you share a little bit about your journey? How did you start your career? How did you get into, the outsourced CFO space back in 2010, which was pretty new? Okay, and you started IX CFO Services. So could you just rewind and go back and tell us?
Yeah, so I think being a finance professional, having passed out in 93, when the India started its liberalizing story around 91 with the Manmohan Singh government, and we were, few of that particular batch probably. And we had seen the transformation of the Indian society, the Indian economy, and probably a long story of 18 years from 93 to 2010. I had been to the finance world around the working with the IT landscape, and fortunately I had worked with the IT, which is another emerging area. So having spent about 18 years in the corporate finance across IT hardware and IT software services primarily, I got an opportunity to figure it out what next. So it becomes a midlife crisis sometime. So at the age of 40, when I was running as a CFO in one of the venture funded company. You get stuck with the entrepreneurship model. The growth, if it doesn't happen the way you would like to, would like to have seen, so you get stuck. So, and my story was the same. So, of course, the economy was opening up, and we had seen just 2008, the big, the capital market in the US, and a lot of those cascading effect on the Indian economy. So, 2010, and we were in the educom kind of a model. EdTech was running a hot favorite, and I was that kind of company. So I had those kind of opportunity, and I had to answer myself, what next? And here comes, this kind of a model. And I just thought, let me just take a new direction in the career. And CFO services, which no one heard, probably we were some of the few leading players in at that point of time. And India was just evolving from the private equity and the venture funded kind of a segment, and a lot of these venture funds were setting up the shop. So let me put the story right this thing. So having seen the midlife crisis myself in the professional career, I thought let's take an entrepreneurship plunge. And there is a Marwadi, baniya kind of a mindset. So it's like your heart and your brain both answered. Let's take it, and that's how they started with journey. So that was
Amazing.
the first step.
Amazing. So you saw the VC capital P market, growing. You were in a similar space, but as an employee, okay. And then you felt, hey, this could take some solid shape in years to come. So you quit everything and started up. That's
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes, correct.
Okay.
So,
So
so,
how?
so in 2006, when that was my last job, 2006, I joined the company funded by a venture capitalist of that time, very famous venture capitalist of that time in India. They come with tons of money, and then in 2010, that company couldn't grow because of many reasons, and obviously one of the reason was that probably the education technology was well ahead of time in India, and there was a reason. I thought let me start taking, because that's a time when there were two three things happening. One is that the mid-sized businesses were aspiring to grow in India. The second thing is there was a lot of private equity and VC models were trying to fund startups and the existing businesses. And third is obviously there is a set of new breed of finance professionals rising on this kind of a economy boom.
Okay, okay. And how was your journey starting out? I mean, it was a new concept. Were businesses open to it, and who were your target clients? So, if you could just shed light on that. And to everybody
So
who's joined in, thank you so much for joining in. If you have any questions, please drop in your questions, and we will address it ASAP. So, yes, sir. Over to you.
So obviously this was a very very raw and very niche field at that point of time. But yes, we clearly identified three segments. One is the new generation businesses. I mean, the old generation is handing over the charge to the new businesses, new generation, and there is a shift which is happening with the new generation from Munimji to a finance controller or a finance professional. I will say a first way, clarity on the finance function. So there is a mid-market businesses which were targeting to organize their finance function in a professional way. That's a one segment. The other segment is the funded companies by private equity and VCs, and especially many of these technocrats. These funds were looking for a CFO services kind of model till the time the company becomes matured, in the sense that they need a full-time CFO or a controller. So that was another segment clearly identified in my segment. And third is obviously the existing CFOs looking for support to organize their finance function with a bit of supplementing the organization. It could be an M&A integration. It could be automation through a ERP segment. It could be anything in the kind of support to their joint ventures or mergers and acquisition, or for a IPO kind of a planning. So these three segments were clearly identified by myself at that point of time.
Okay, okay, that's amazing. And how was the first few years? Or you could say the first year. How was the first year? Did you get the kind of clients that you wanted? Did you hit the revenue that you were looking at? What was it like?
Very very struggle. I tell you, for first 9 to 10 months, people will see you as a fly by night operator, because you came straight from the corporate with that seventh of the check as a salary guy. So they will see whether you can sustain yourself for first 100 days, first 1 year. So nobody will give you anything in terms of business, but they will just keep, saying that yes, we will definitely look for your kind of a model in our this thing. But for a 1 year, to be very honest, we didn't get a single mandate. And our journey started post that. Once they see that this guy is serious enough and he is going to now not looking for a salary check on the 7th or the 1st of the month. That's how the entrepreneurship is being tested in India.
Yes, absolutely. So then you mean to say the first year was a struggle, but then the second year it picked up and you started doing well, or even the second year was another set of challenges?
No, I guess the second year onwards, yes, we absolutely got a very good ramping up in terms of the businesses. Obviously, the pricing was a big problem for us at that point of time, because the engagement model. and the measurement of the engagement model is a bit of problem. Even if you explain to them the impact which we will make through our model is very, very difficult for a business owner to understand, because the back office is always a least priority area, to be very honest, you know. So getting a pricing is a problem in the second year, but the good part is that we were able to sign up good amount of client, and that was a really good, cushion for us to look for a sustainability journey in terms of acquisition and getting into a more clients.
Okay, okay. And what was your client acquisition strategy? Did you have any strategy? And when did you reach to level of, what do you say, a good set of clients, a good revenue coming in? Because of late I've been talking to a lot of outsourced CFOs who cater to the US market, and they are doing extremely well, like absolutely well, right? So if you could just highlight a little bit about how was that phase in terms of growth, and was the growth exponential, and when did that exponential growth happen, or it's yet to happen?
See, I tell you, actually, to be very honest, the IX CFO services was a bootstrap model. We never got a funding from the investor. And we were in the market during 2014 to 2016 phase. And I remember one of our, the great, this thing, model, which is run by Venkat and my other friend, they able to crack that particular thing. But we were trying to get that. And I tell you the reason why we actually is into a very niche space, because we never got into an F&A outsourcing. We were absolutely positioning ourselves in the CXO kind of a positioning. Either it's a finance controller or a CFO. That's it. We never wanted to get into a down the line F&A outsourcing, because there are already host of players in the market, either run by the professional chartered accountants firm or the service provider itself, and we were ready to have those kind of a plug and play partnership. So we were having a lot of those issues in terms of positioning our model into that segment. So therefore, our model was very, very focused, very position oriented, and what we have to address is just a kind of a platform where we have on the demand side the SMEs coming up, the growth centric companies coming up with the CFO services requirement, and on the supply side we have the range of corporate finance professionals who left the job but they are looking for the opportunity to engage through a platform like IXCF.
Okay, okay. So what? Okay, so you mean to say till 2016 it was, what do you? It was still, there was still a lot of learning curve that was happening. It was not very very easy. That's what you also mean to say.
See, in the space like SME, the mid-market businesses, it's very difficult to engage with the promoter because they have a very low level of understanding in terms of the finance role, especially in the growth journey. Many of these SMEs struggle to get their even the basic MIS, to analyze. Many of these SMEs do not have a tier two team in terms of engaging on a operations and business review with the help of finance staff. So we had seen that there is a lot of struggle around positioning our services in an engagement model. Obviously, there is a learning on the other side that we were very, niche in the area, and therefore we were equally willing to go with that kind of a learning with this particular segment. The other segment where we wanted to support the existing CFO and the VCs and private equity, they were anyway knowing the role of a CFO. So therefore, to that extent, we were not having any trouble in getting the engagement from these kind of VCs and private equity firms, and also the existing CFO services. But obviously, existing CFOs, again, being an IX CFO, very raw player, they would opt for a big four services, even though we were having a equally competent finance professional, because we will not get into an engagement with any finance professional if he doesn't understand the role of a controller and CFO. But obviously they will have a bias towards big four or any other service provider. So that was one of the challenges which we encountered facing these segments. So mid-market businesses, yes, there is a Munimji kind of a orientation, and understanding the role of a CFO and controller is a bit of learning for them as well. The VCs and private equity, they understand our role, so therefore there is no problem absolutely, and we were clearly positioned. The CFOs on the other part, obviously they will incline to go for the big four or any other settled accounting firm for the services requirement.
Okay. And how things changed after 2016, or you could say after like 2020, when the funding was exponential, and also there's a lot of investment by private equity firms in the SME space, right? There's a lot of money coming in. So how has that kind of impacted your business?
See, I think honestly, if you ask me, I think we had a fairly a niche level of engagements at our level. We never went into a mass selling ourselves because we were not into a complete finance outsourcing package. When I say complete finance outsourcing, it means even managing the what we call the below the rank of a controller and CFO, like the complete F&A outsourcing, finance and accounts outsourcing. We were not into that game. We were only on the game of a positioning controller and CFO services. So we were very nichely positioned, and our journey was restricted again because we never got a funding which we wanted to have that. And in 2016, we had a demonetization in India. That was one of the, again, a turmoil in the economy for some time. Then we had another transition through a GST model in 2018. That was another turmoil. Then we have ILFS and a lot of the stock market crash which we encountered in 2018-19. And then came the COVID. So we had, if you ask me honestly, 2016 to 2020 was a journey. Again, had lot of these economy kind of a transitioning phase in India, and therefore we never could able to transform our model into what we call the complete finance outsourcing. We are still focused on that kind of a role, and we continue to do that in that segment. And obviously the pricing is one of the area which we still facing a trouble in the market, because we never get what the understanding about the role of a CFO and those things. But we drive the value with a position that we get a measurement of our deliverables. We clearly laid down the engagement framework where there is a clear measurement of our engagement, and therefore that is where we now start getting our value pricing clearly chalked out post COVID.
Okay, okay. So from what I understood, a lot of the players in the market right now, they are not just providing CFO services, they're also providing other add-on services, which actually is what a lot of clients prefer as well. Okay, so if anybody wants to start today, they have to take into consideration a bundle of services and not just one, because it's still not a very easy market to enter in India and to cater to that kind of a market. Is it clear? Is it that?
Absolutely, I agree. In India, there are one challenge is that the competition. The competition from the what we call the chartered accountants in practice. To be very honest, many of the CAs in practice, and my view is that instead of competition, we should have a collaboration. And I had positioned on multiple time in on our LinkedIn to my fellow practicing chartered accountants that let's collaborate, because the operating finance role, where the role of a controller and CFO comes, is very different than what a practicing CA actually is doing. Unfortunately, that particular collaboration, which is the key to grow, is not happening the way we would like to have it in India. So that's one of the area which I feel that we are unable to get into that kind of a collaboration. In fact, in the US, there is a CPA, there are CPAs in practice, and there are CFO services models, and both actually nicely collaborate in the market to serve the SME ecosystem, which is not happening in India, unfortunately. And that's area of concern for me. And that actually takes away a lot of your the understanding about the CFO or the controllership kind of a positioning. One aspect. The second is the value pricing, which this particular service deserve in the market, is being hampered.
That's insightful. Okay. So
Yeah.
we'll come to the pricing model as well. But can you just explain a little bit, how does this entire business model operate, and, and what do actually clients expect from you?
So see, I think as I get into the understanding about the CFO services or the controllership or a CFO service market, one of the the biggest requirement is to understand the SME where he stands in his growth journey. Again, I would like to tell you there are host of SMEs in India, but not everyone will opt for the kind of CFO services which we are trying to address, the mid-market businesses. Okay, so we would like to understand where the client stands in their growth journey. Is he really going to grow from here on? And that is where the value can be added, not only from our pool of knowledge as an aggregator, but also from the bunch of finance professionals which we have and the kind of experience which we carried in the market of last 13 years. So it's very important for us to understand this particular framework, the engagement framework that should drive the real value to the client, because any SME will have number of issues in the finance functions. How do we address those issues in a 100 days period, 180 days period, and after that? Because initially you have to get your hand dirty. You are not into a business consulting model. Actually, you have to get your hands dirty. You have to set the things in right, and especially in terms of setting even the basic about the scorekeeping, or the closing your books on time. That itself is one of the area where the businesses do not have any kind of a function of process or the real automation, the backbone of any finance function. So a finance function or a CFO cannot grow individually as well as adding value to the business if the finance, the your order, your house itself is in a problem. So you need to address the automation within the finance function, your MIS, which is the foundation to build the growth centric businesses. If your MIS doesn't show the right analytics, the right alerts, I think you are nowhere into the game of CFO or controllership. Because at the end of the day, if you ask me honestly, there are three things which a CFO can add very clearly: the margin efficiency, the cash flow optimization, and the business value acceleration. If you are addressing these three pillars one by one, and that's a journey which a CFO need to check out in the engagement plan. And if that is not being given in the in the engagement model, I don't think any CFO services model can actually deliver a value or to the answer to the businesses.
Okay. And what's the typical turnover of the clients who look for such services? Any
Anywhere,
bandwidth?
anywhere from 50 crore to 500 crore. Yes, we had done those kind of clients as well. And some of these clients are listed, and we are proud that some of these clients had actually built up their growth journey with us, and we had a lot of those case studies with us.
Okay. So
And today they are listed.
do you think the clients who have a turnover of say 250, 200, 300 crores, like they can't afford a CFO, or you mean to say CFO, outsourced CFO services is an add-on to the current CFO as well? You also mentioned that, right? So
They can afford. There is no ifs and buts here. I mean, the finance function has to be there with the CFO at certain point of time. Let me build a story. Once you outsource your capital through a debt model, okay, once your debt comes into your balance sheet, I think you are outsourcing capital, isn't it, for a growth? The day
yes.
on which you have a balance sheet with a debt burden, I think that's a time when you should have a controller or a CFO, even with the CFO services model, on your balance sheet. So when you should hire a CFO, once you have a debt, that's a journey when you start leveraging your balance sheet for a growth. And many of the SMEs unfortunately do not address this problem. And I also have a hesitation in saying that many of our SMEs, bankers also do not insist to have a good professional CFO. And I had seen in US the term sheet when they issue a sanction on a debt, the primary condition will be to have a CFO or a controller, either through a CFO services model or you have a full-time CFO and controller. But that is not happening in India, unfortunately. So in
Okay.
my view, I think that's a key requirement that we must have this kind of an exercise. And 250 300 crore companies, I think they should have a CFO services model or a full-time CFO if they are into a hyper growth model.
Do you see this regulation coming into picture anytime soon? Not regulation, I would say, but the need where they will mention, hey, your company should have a CFO, because we've seen instances where companies like Byju's didn't have CFOs, from what I understand, right? Like such large organizations. So, I mean, do you see that happening, or it's going?
See, I guess in terms of regulation, it's very difficult to address the private market, private limited companies. On the listed side, anyway, there are listing requirements, and there is a requirement to have a CFO on the board through a listing regulatory requirement through a SEBI and the regulatory exchanges, NSE and BSE. And they keep insisting on such kind of a CFO as per the Companies Act as well. So there are already a regulatory provision to have a CFO, but as long as you are a private limited company and you don't have any such requirement, I think very difficult to insist. It's a self governance or a self regulatory mechanism which a owner should understand the role of a CFO and controller to be on the safe side and to be a real value addition.
Okay, okay. And can you highlight a little bit about the pricing model? Like, what's the pricing model like, which you guys follow, or in general that happens in the CFO, outsourced or virtual CFO model? Is it hourly basis, project basis? Like, what is it?
Yeah, I think if you ask me honestly, in the US also there are pricing model which is subscription based, but that could be that I have seen couple of models in India as well, but I don't know how successful they are. There are SMEs less than 50 crore revenue, and probably they will not go for a CFO services model, but they can still have a subscription based model where you can actually come sometime through a virtual CFO services model, and you can answer some of those challenges which they are going through in their business accounting and the finance function side. So that's one of the model. The other model, as I'm telling you, on the engagement function for a INR 50 crore or 7 to 8 million US dollar roughly. If those companies are going for a CFO services model, I think the much depend on the intensity of the engagement, because there could be a ramp up engagement for first 6 months, and then after that we trim down the engagement because there are a lot of legacy issues which we need to clear it out. So there could be lot of variations around the pricing, but yes, there is a threshold given the kind of resources which one need to address these particular challenges in the finance function. So there is a threshold, and obviously we work under a certain threshold, and that threshold has to be given. It could be anything from uh, 2 lakh to 4 lakh based on the revenue size of the businesses, because less than that it doesn't make any sense, neither for a finance professional and nor for a platform like IXCFO to address those kind of client requirement. And unnecessarily you get bogged down with so many things once you get into a real engagement that the pricing becomes too low many times, therefore it doesn't make sense. So there has to be a threshold. It has to be clearly crafted out based on the understanding of the business model and what value we will deliver in a very, very phased manner. Because as I'm saying, it's a three-way process: margin efficiency, cash flow optimization, and then the third step in terms of a strategic CFO role, value creation. It could be a good benchmark in terms of where do you stand on your competition.
Okay, okay, that's amazing. Okay, so you must have also faced situations where though it's on paper, but sometimes there could be a little bit of a confusion with the promoters and with the outsourced CFOs, and that could delay payments. That could create a lot of other challenges. That does happen.
Very much in Indian market, because as I could see that many of the SMEs are actually transitioning from just a Munimji kind of a scenario to a finance professional, and you can understand the transition which we encounter in those kind of mid-market businesses. Therefore, we encounter a lot of challenges. We have to give a lot of learning to the owners that what we are really doing. Therefore, what is important for our platform is to give learning, keep engaging with the owner, what we are deriving. When I say margin efficiency, there are a lot of buckets around margin efficiencies. It could be a process-based efficiency. it could be a controls based efficiency, it could be automation based efficiencies. So there are a lot of buckets which we need to draw in our engagement model, and we have to show an impact on a monthly basis that where is the red alert in the finance function and how we are plugging that those red alert. And unless we have a right people down the line, a finance function again cannot work. So we have to get into a real engagement based on a continuously updating the model, the deliverables, the plan of action, what we are going to achieve 100 days, where we are missing, what support we need from the owner, how we should understand what we are driving the value. So there are a lot of those issues where we have to get into understanding of the real climax in the finance function.
Amazing. That's some amazing advice. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we have with us Suraj. Okay. So Suraj, he was basically working with PwC. He's a chartered accountant. He was with PwC. Okay. And recently he moved from PwC to start something known as Bright Accounts, and they provide virtual CFO services. So the main goal of actually inviting Suraj. Hi Suraj, thanks for joining
Hi,
in.
hi.
First of all.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank
The main goal for inviting him is, like as somebody, you could say who's qualified recently, he was working in a big four. Why did you take the plunge, to provide CFO services? And, what opportunity did you see in this space?
yeah, exactly. Thanks for introducing that. Hi, Sanjay. Yeah. So I mean, when I was with PwC earlier, right, I did my articleship there and post qualification. In total, I was working there for around 6.5 years there, and there I have seen clients from the startups to listed companies, Fortune 500 companies. I've worked with them, what business model they follow, how they follow in large companies, and I've seen how things exactly were working in startups. When it comes to startups, right, they were struggling a lot. I mean, a startup, see, PwC kind of a firm will have a client wherein they will for sure be a CFO. Even when there is a CFO, they were facing a lot of issues in terms of managing their internal finance or whatever it is. Then it struck to my mind saying that okay, fine, a well-funded startup itself wherein they have a CFO, there is so much of issue. Why not still lower kind of a company has so much of issues, and tax authorities are not going to leave anybody. They're just rolling out the notice, let it be your GST, let it be your income taxes or whatever it is. So then I thought, okay, fine, there is for sure a lot of demand in the market wherein the required expertise service. It is not just about compliances, but it's about value addition. See, any businessman you go and you tell them saying that, okay, till date you were making 5 CR of profit. I'll give you some advisory service, and because of this, you'll make 2 more crore of profit. They'll be interested to listen to you, right? I mean, take any business person, any founder, or any startup for that matter. When you say, okay, then they will be like, oh, okay, I'll need to concentrate something on this, because any business founders or something, they won't focus much on the finance side. They will mostly focus on the business development side. They won't be so much into this finance. They would have just given it to some person, or they would have just outsourced it to a CA. Wherein, I mean, they would have just given it to a chartered accountant, wherein they will just look at a year-end accounts in terms of their preparing their account. They wouldn't have known the importance and the impact they would have of having a CFO. But at the same time, they can't have
Suraj,
a full-time CFO.
yeah, cool. Okay, cool. So Suraj, I just want to ask you this question: is that in the last 8 months, okay, that you've started this virtual CFO services, right? So how has your growth been in the last 8 months? Like, was it like, I understand startups don't have CFOs, they don't have finance guys, and they are only on business development. But is it easy for you to get clients and convince them that this has happened? And has it happened to you practically?
Yeah, that did happen gently. So, I mean, as I have mentioned, right, it's a value addition what you add. If you tell them that I'm going to add this much of value because of me, your compliances, everything will be on place. Because of me coming in, your books, everything will be on place and everything. I mean, you give them what value you can add it to them, and for
Yep.
sure they will be willing to take you as a virtual CFO over
So
there.
you have onboarded a lot of clients in this space, and it has been a good start for you. That's what you're saying, that the
Yeah.
opportunity for virtual CFO is good, and particularly
Yes.
you're also in Bangalore.
Yeah.
Okay. So what has been your client acquisition strategy? I mean, because there are so many outsourced CFOs, virtual CFOs. What has been your strategy and what has worked for you? If you could give us practical insights into
Okay,
that.
in terms of clientele, right, as Sanjay had earlier mentioned, like, there would be two kind of companies which would not have a CFO or which would need a virtual CFO. One is the, a small founder-based startups, which I mean, promoter-based startups, and the other is VC-funded startups. VC-funded startups is something wherein they can understand the need of a CFO or something, then you can go pitch into them directly in terms of through either directly through the VC or something, saying that this is how we can report it to your VC or whatever it is to the startups. And next, coming to the the promoter based startups, right? You
Yeah.
can target them saying that what one.
Yeah, Suraj, I understood that. But my point is like, my question, I'll just like, have you found it easy to acquire these clients and what is your client strategy? I mean, if you could emphasize on your journey, I mean, that would really be
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah. The initial few clients for sure were based on the references which I got in, because I had my prior experience with PwC and everything. That tag made a difference to me in terms of acquiring the clients later on. But the initial clients, what I got was all through the references which I got, through my ex employees or the ex clients where I worked with and everything, and through them the word of mouth. And so this was the initial client acquisition, but now, also there are a lot of business events and everything, those will make a lot of difference, because when they sell, okay, that doesn't make a big difference of attending those events, but yeah, for sure they'll make a difference in terms of, when you go to the business event, when you prove them saying that you are going to add something for them, and they will listen to you. I mean, it's about how you sell your service, that's all, at the end of the day.
So for you, it has been a smooth run. So would you advise somebody who wants to quit a big four job and get into this? What will you tell them? Should they quit? Get into it? Will it be easy? Like Sanjay had a few years, which was really tough. So I mean, but with you, it's you're saying it's an easier ride. So what
I
do you
mean,
want to say?
rather than saying it's a easier thing, I can say that there is for sure demand for this. It is that you will need to know how exactly you need to sell it. I mean,
Okay.
there is that gap between, usually we CAs are not so that great at marketing as such. We will need to focus on that as to how to target the client, what are their pain points and everything. We will need to target on that, and we will need to tell them, oh look, this is what we can add value to you and everything, and for sure we can acquire them.
Amazing. And from what we last spoke, you are also tied up to a CA firm, right? So that has been the main strategy, right?
Yeah.
Would you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have both a CA firm and a consulting firm, like how any other big fours or whatever has it, right? They would have a consulting division and a CA division. So, in terms of all the compliance related, or let it be statutory audit related, internal audit, or whatever with respect to the compliances part and everything would be required, would be done as part of the CA firm, and all the other consulting service, advisory service would be done through the management consulting firm.
Okay, so this has been a good pipeline for clients as well. I mean, that's what Sanjay was saying. If CFO services, CFOs providing CFO services work together with CA firms, right? It could be a very strong model, right, Sanjay? That's what you mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what these guys are exactly doing. That's amazing. So
I think
that's
there is a lot of scope for collaboration across practicing CAs in tier one, tier two cities or tier three cities. That is where I see a huge potentiality. I think the collaboration is key for a win-win to this thing, because at the end of the day we have to enrich the SME ecosystem in India. As we are growing from here to 2030 or 2040, there's a lot of talk about a bigger market capitalization happening through a listing segment. And that is where the hidden gems are. And probably, the practicing CAs and the CFO services firms, there's a huge scope that, how we can actually polish some of these gems, which are there in the SME businesses across these cities in India. And that's where the real collaboration, and that's where the story for both the sides lies in terms of unfolding the journey of growth.
okay, amazing. Suraj, would you want to have? Would you have any questions for Sanjay? I mean, some question which you feel
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
has.
yeah. I definitely have a question. So, Sanjay, how do you see the potential, going forward, and what would be the best strategy for a new starters like us to enter the market?
See, I think again the market as I see today with the Sensex at high time, Nifty at high time, everybody is aspiring to grow. There is a again the CFO service is not meant for an ordinary SME. If there is a no growth, I don't think there is any CFO services requirement there. If you want to really capture the market, the essence of market, there is a mid-market segment. There are obviously the big players coming in a big way from private equity and VC side, and they are here to capture the essence of CFO services to address some of these founders' requirement at the initial stage of growth till the time the companies or the businesses becomes mature. That's a clear segment. And third is a segment as I saying that there are already existing CFOs and they need to see that how these platforms can actually add value,
Yeah.
and that's a real crux. So my request to all my fellow CFOs is that obviously you have the host of accounting firm, the big four and this thing, but there are chartered accountants, there are CFOs who would like to engage through our kind of platform, and they have been there, they have done that kind of a role, and for some reason or other, they are scouting for a work through our platform. So there is a huge potential again for a collaboration in that third segment. So I see there is a huge opportunity for an operating finance level controllership CFO service model, or for a strategic CFO level to understand and to unlock the value of the business. So there are clear segments, there are clear engagement models in place.
Okay, okay. Suraj, do you have any other question? I mean,
Uh,
anything.
nothing from my.
Did it
I
answer
think.
your, did it answer your question, or
Yeah,
Sanjay
I
can
mean,
repeat?
in terms of, yeah, one part of it was answered in terms of, the strategies to acquire those particular customers. Do you have any specific strategies as such, Sanjay?
See, I tell you, the strategy first is to understand the city market, because there are not every city in India will have those kind of pricing which you would like to target through your model. So you need to be clearly figuring out what is that going to drive your pricing strategy in those cities. And then second thing is that there are a lot of, let's say, a tele. For an example, I give you an example. There are channel partners across India. Now, how do we actually piggy bank on these channel partners to acquire the business? That's very critical for this thing. Again, you will not find those kind of high pricing game, but you can develop a subscription based model probably with the help
Yes.
of these tele channel partners. And in US, fortunately, there are a lot of these subscription based models, which they call virtual CFO services, or what we call the initial handholding of the finance function through a virtual or through a subscription based model with tie up from the leading this accounting leading software firms like Tele or Joho or those kind of thing. And that's again a very a niche market, but it has a very good value proposition to address the initial CFO services market.
Amazing. So I think that's a good point, Suraj, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you can piggyback on brands like Tally is
Yeah.
with, all the SMEs, right, and small businesses. So is Zoho. So there should be some collaboration or something that happens, because most of these CFOs from SMEs and small businesses, you can't find them on LinkedIn, at least as of now, right?
Yeah.
It's
Correct.
not right. So okay, okay. Sanjay,
Absolutely.
anything else you would want to add? Like, if I want to know the list of like the SMEs or small businesses, like how am I supposed to acquire those lists? I mean, is there a way? Can one do it?
No, I think the game here is to be a collaboration, because you just can't look for the clients here and there. Obviously, there are social media platforms, they can play a value to a certain role, but it has to be a piggy bank collaboration strategy. As I'm telling you, either you have a collaboration with the software service provider like uh, the cloud-based accounting software like Zoho or Tele or whoever, or Intuit in fact left in India. So that could be a one strategy. The other the strategy, as I'm telling you, run a model with the practicing CA firms, because they are sitting with a lot of SME clients, and that is where we can actually play a value. So that's another collaboration with those kind of firm. And third is obviously the business consulting side of the value services provider. That's another segment where you can have a collaboration with those kind of firms. So I think the collaboration is one aspect. That's how you can grow. The fourth is obviously through your organic social media platform, whatever you can push your case studies, your content, and your all kind of the engagement successful stories, what you can depict. And there are a lot of these what we call the your story, the Inc. 42, a lot of these startups engagement models, and that's where again a collaboration is there. So there is a whole host of ecosystem which has been there now in India, which has been flourishing, and how you can collaborate with one of them is the key.
Amazing. Suraj, any questions? Any more questions?
Nothing from my end, gently. I think that was
Nothing.
majorly answered. I mean, that was one of the question. I think even most of the other, people who are watching this show would be willing to know on the strategy how to acquire the clients. I think that added a great value, Sanjay. Thanks for that.
Done. Thanks, Suraj. Thanks a lot. Cool. So, Sanjay, I'll come to you. Okay, there's this one question which is shown here, which says that can a CA in practice work alongside as a founder for a CFO consultancy service, and what would that trigger a conflict? Now, I think over here it's like they're two separate firms. It's not the same firm, right? That's a totally different firm. You want to add to this, Suraj?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, as you have mentioned it, right, these are two different firms. It is just that, whatever the services are coming, it's getting bifurcated between those, but there is no direct contact or agreement between both of these firms.
Yeah. Cool. The next one is Ankit says ensuring the proper extraction of value from assets of the company. Does it fall under the role of a controller or CFO? Sanjay, would you want to take this?
See, I think the role of CFO has to be looked at from the value point of view in terms of tangible and intangibles. Not everything can be actually measured. Okay, the process centric role which a CFO or a controller play in ramping up the finance function to commensurate with the business growth, the tangible side or the intangible sides are two aspects. So how do you extract the value? One is that you have a hardcore asset. One is that you have intangible assets. Okay, through your business model, through your niche software. So obviously, the controller and CFO has a role to play in that, because once we have invested significant amount of money on those kind of assets, there lies a proposition for a CFO to figure it out how business model is being driven under this kind of a scenario where you need to really draw the value.
Okay. Sanjay, would you want to add as well? Who are the major players and competitors who are focused only on this outsourced CFO market in India, catering to the startups in India, SMEs? Like, would you want to add on that?
Sorry, come back, please.
The major competitors, in this space in India, who have like really big setups.
See, I think everybody knows the Venkat company, the My CFO, the practice, I think, and then obviously you have Big Four again. I think some of them has a CFO services model inside their verticals, and then I think there could be a city-based CFO services firm, and they are running very well in those specific cities. But at a pan-India level, I think there are very few CFO services model where we can see that there is a real competition. But honestly, I think this market has lot to unfold in terms of value creation and in terms of the growth journey. Because in US, I tell you, it was around 2000 that the CFO services model started coming out. And in 2015 or 2018 onwards, we have seen the CFO services market started the consolidation journey there. So we are, if you ask me, I think from the US perspective, we are 10 years behind. So here is a time where you will see the lot of growth journey which will start. There are not many pan-India players in the CFO services segment. If you remove the accounting, practicing accounting or the big four side.
Okay. And what is right is the homegrown CFO services, the big ones like Venkat, Steve, and everything. What is the right thing that they are doing, that helped them grow so big? What was it?
I think one of the big right probably is that how do you propose a value to the client in terms of the end-to-end deliverables on the finance function strengthening. If that engagement framework which you have, that's very key. How do you engage with the client from that perspective? And obviously, I think being the first mover advantage which they are carrying is being run very well. So some of these factors plays very crucial role, and ultimately it boils down to the engagement framework. How do you deliver value to the mid market or the growing business? Because once you enter into a game of providing CFO services, you will see n number of issues which a client will list down. But not every issue will be a priority in terms of the pricing which you have been getting from the owner. Therefore, engagement or the tool, how do you start looking into addressing those issues becomes a very crucial. And how do you actually have a proactive engagement, not a reactive engagement? Again, I'm telling you, very different. Be a proactive with your SME clients, then only will understand that what value or what you or your role is precisely, and how you are graduating yourself, how is understanding from you more than a Munimji.
Okay, like this question to both of you. Have you guys also served US clients, right? Like as I said, there are a lot of FP&A kind of work, which is, as an outsourced virtual CFO for US market, which a lot of Indians are doing, right? So have you guys tapped on that market as well, like through TopTal or Upwork, or maybe directly? Or it's only or it's only the Indian SME, Indian startups kind of clients that you all are looking at. Suraj, would you want to take this?
Yeah, sure, sure. So first thing is with respect to the whether I have served for the US market. Yes, I do have few US clients where we are serving upon. But one thing which we will need to focus upon is that US market is not a price sensitive market; it's a quality sensitive market. So any person who want to go for any virtual CFO is not a normal service, right? It's a premium service. When they're going for a premium service, right, they want to see a well-known brand, the presence in the market, their presence in the media and everything. They see a lot of things when it comes to them. They don't want to take that risk, they don't want to place their whole company's decisions or whatever it is in normal persons. So first thing, I think, for anybody, rather than directly exploring it to a US market, either you can have a connect with somebody in US, get it outsourced here and do it. That is one thing. Second thing is about building personal brand and the company's brand. That is much more important, which will add value 4 5 years down the line.
Okay, that's amazing because that's what even I have heard. A lot of people use TopTal right now. It's a very stringent process, but they use
Yeah.
TopTal, and I know that they're doing absolutely well. At least during the pandemic time, the market serving the US market was huge. So yeah, Sanjay, would you want to add on that? Like, do you guys also serve the US market, or it's only SME businesses from India? I
See, from the US market, again, there is a good level of collaboration possible through a CFO services firm as well as through a CPA accounting firms. Many of the CPAs are in a transition mode or in a succession planning stage in US. So there is a potential there to collaborate with the CFO services firms there. And in fact, we were trying and we are trying in that particular segment. And to be very honest, we had served a couple of those clients in the past sitting in India to the SMEs in the US. And we have a lot of those case studies with us as well. And we are still figuring out how do we draw the more value from the US based CFO services firms via collaboration exercise.
Okay, okay, cool. So yes, guys, I mean, any closing message to somebody who wants to enter the space and who wants to really grow in the space, like go big in it. Any closing message? Suraj, you can take it first, and then we can close it with
Yeah.
Sanjay.
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to, I mean, as I've mentioned earlier, right, when it comes to the opportunities, when it comes to the demand and everything, the market is too open. And considering, all the predictions saying that India is growing at a whatever rate and everything, for sure there are many startups which will come in, which will need a CA or a CFO, who will be an advisor to them. The other side, it's all open. It's all dependent on us, how we take it, how we pitch into the client, how we convert that particular lead as a client.
Amazing, amazing, cool. So there's great opportunity. Sanjay, would you want to close this conversation with
See,
any closing?
I I think to summarize, there is a potential. Two words very important for me to address this market: collaboration. That is the key. Collaboration across professional streams, across service providers. Because if you need to sustain the SME market in India, You just cannot have this strategy, this particular thing in place. So unless you build that in the business model, how are you going to acquire? How are you going to grow? I think without collaboration, there is no way you can capture the essence of the market. The second thing is competitiveness, the another C, in terms of pricing and the engagement model, because that's very important again here. So these two C, collaboration and competitiveness, if you are addressing that particular thing in your CFO services model, I think here is the game for anyone to enter. Again, it is all about teamwork. Never start your journey in a solo mode in India. You will get tired as usual. To start with collaboration, start with that competitiveness in terms of positioning and pricing. And I think here is a game for a sustainability.
Okay, and this is also the right time because, as you said, India still has a 10-year law, a growth period which can be manifold, right? It can really be 10x or 100x the growth, right, in the next 10 years coming up.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is a China plus story which we keep hearing. There is a lot of the per capita income in India. The consumption story is just building up. So there is a huge value factor which is going to come from the SME and the startup ecosystem. So we see for the next 10, 15 years, this is a big area to grow. But how do we position? Because again, you can't call yourself from the day one to the business owner that I am here to give you a business consulting, because he doesn't want a business consulting. He wants an implementation model. He wants a real executor to help understand the modalities of the finance function. Because at the end of the day, if the numbers are not being given on the dashboard in a right way, what finance function you are going to add value? What finance function he will aspire? Because that's very crucial for him to understand the value, and that's where the game lies.
Okay, and and also as you said, the typical SMEs in India, small businesses, it's not. You have to understand how they function. That's very important because the functioning of them is very different from larger organizations for obvious reasons. Of course, yes, it's still functioning like more like an accounting kind of a profile. So that there's a big mindset shift which is going to happen.
Absolutely. In fact, I still remember the interview of the tele this thing founder, Mr. Goenka, and he says in SMEs in India, they just they just work like a large corporate sometime. You know, they just position themselves as a large corporate selling a tele, and then you are saying that can you send somebody to install it? I think at 20,000 rupees that becomes uncompetitive. Okay, so the mindset of SMEs in India need to really fine tune, need to really align with the realities that they need somebody to collaborate. So unless that particular mindset is being fine tuned, and obviously with the new startup ecosystem that is changing, I'm not saying it is not changing. People are realizing the value, but it will change over a period next 5 to 7 years in a drastic mode. And post COVID, the wave of digitization, the wave of understanding of the finance function and the automation around that, I think that there is a value, there is a lot of things which will unfold as we grow.
Okay, that's amazing. Sanjay, any events where you can connect to SME, MSME kind of clients? Any events that you've been attending or you see people attending?
A lot of them, I think there are a lot of good SME platforms, there are a lot of good startups ecosystems, there are a
Any
lot of
names?
good private.
Any for
We have Venture Intelligence, we have VC Circle, we have Inc. 42, Your Story, the SME Ecoform in Bombay Chamber of Commerce. Then there are city-based SME model. Then there are CII or the FICI or the SOCM. All these pan India level the organizations, apex bodies also has an SME forum. So there are a lot of the forum. There are a lot of those SME verticals, apex bodies where you can actually address either it could be a NESCOM or even it could be a industry-based specific bodies.
Okay, cool. Done. So I guess we've covered all the questions. And guys, if anyone has any questions, you can directly write to Sanjay and Suraj. We will make an article out of this, of course, and we'll also put out the video after editing it to an extent. And yes, guys, thank you so much. Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks, Suraj, for joining in. For helping us understand the two perspectives and the market. So thanks a ton for the time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you
Thank you.
again. Thanks
Thank you.
for calling us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for the time. Take care. See you. Thank you. Bye. See you.